How you going, Dan?
Good, thanks. John, yourself, mate?
Fantastic. You're happy that the Bulldogs are now the best defensive team in the competition?
It's amazing. It's just last year, after being the worst defensive team in the competition, what a turnaround in the space of 6 months. Unbelievable.
Looks like Cameron Serraldo's probably going to win Most Improved Coach of the Year at the Dally M's. Coach of the Year at the Dally M's.
Yeah, well, you're right. It is a Most Improved Coaching Award, but I'd say he's a pretty fair candidate for that gong at this stage. I would have thought.
The only
we'll see how it plays out. There's still a long way to go. At this stage, they are looking good for a top 8 finish, you would have to say.
The only coach I can see at this point doing anything that would actually beat him for the Dally M was if Ben Hornby took the Rabbitohs into the finals.
Rabbitohs have turned it around, 3 in a row, 3 on the bounce.
I saw a media comment where I was like, I can't understand what was happening at the beginning of the year to prevent this. And if you can't understand it, you're missing what happened about 5 weeks ago.
I think if you work out who the coach was then and who's not the coach anymore,
I think you can understand it.
You can maybe work that one out. I guess we would have to say it is starting to look more and more like the coach was the issue there. Only because of their turnaround in form. Had they not had this turnaround, you'd be thinking, well, was it really the coach or the issues ran deeper? But with this turnaround, I think it's fair to say the coach had a fair bit to do with it.
They won 3 in a row and they've gone from last to 14th. Mm-hmm. The only thing that changed was the coach.
Yeah, I think you've got the ladder in front of you. I think they've lost 9, have they?
Lost 9.
Yeah,
won 4.
So it's still going to be very hard to make the 8. I mean, they're 5 wins in arrears of being level on wins and losses. So 4 wins, 9 losses. I still think it's going to be really difficult for them to make the 8.
It's not going to happen.
They do have a good roster, but I think they've just given up too much ground on the other teams with that horror start to the season. I can't see them making the 8. But this is a big improvement on their start to the season for sure.
Well, oh God. No, they have. There's 12 rounds left. There's no real chance of them making the 8 in theory, but there was no real chance in round 15 of the Knights making the 8 last year, and it's from round 15 was when they went on their runs. So yeah, and the Rabbitohs, mentioned it before. Rabbitohs do have that player that can Kalen Ponga. The Rabbitohs into the 8 in Latrell Mitchell if he plays well. The difference between the Knights last year and Kalen Ponga carrying them into the 8 and the Rabbitohs and having Latrell Mitchell to carry them into the 8, the Rabbitohs also have a bunch of other players that are not like, Latrell Mitchell calibre, but it's not going to be at the end of the year Willie Mason saying no one's scared of that spine.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, what's going to work against the Rabbitohs coming up? Again, I haven't had that close a look at their draw. I'm not sure if they've got any buys coming up. They've already had 2 buys. But yeah, Latrell Mitchell's going to be, assuming that they're playing this weekend.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, so Latrell won't play in that game. And I'm not sure who their opponent is
Manly
before Game 3. But that week, they're probably not going to have... Well, they won't have...
No, they've got the bye. So
they're only going to miss him for 1 game.
Yeah, and they got Manly, who will be without Tom Trbojevic, Daly Cherry Evans, actually this week. So I know Rabbitohs has had a few named in the Origin sides, which we'll get to, but...
Yeah, Cam Murray as well.
Yeah, so obviously the Rabbitohs are favourites simply because of that. Like, Sea Eagles are without 2 of their best players. Or 3. Jake Trbojevic is out as well. So you have to say Rabbitohs are a good chance to win this week. And then a bye next week, and then the Eels the week after. Their draw is, for the rest of the year, is a mixed bag, actually. They've got teams like the Tigers, and Tigers finally get off the bottom.
Yeah, snap that 9-game losing streak. That win over the Titans, and the Titans are And now last, I think it's only on like 2 points by differential.
Yeah, it is. It's really close. So. But the Rabbitohs have got like the Tigers twice, the Knights who aren't going very well, and then the Eels who are a mixed bag. But they've also got their run home, the Dolphins, the Storm, the Roosters, the Panthers. So it's going to take a lot. Not only do they have to basically win every game, almost win every game from here, they have to overcome some pretty big teams in there with the Roosters, Panthers and Storm. So it's not likely, but it's just a good news story now. Like, Rabbitohs are off the bottom of the ladder. Apparently Jason Demetriou has been angling for the Parramatta job, but
yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
That's madness given what has come.
No.
Yeah, surely Parramatta can't look at that and go, well, they went from the grand final to breaking the unwanted record of being the first team ever to lead the competition after 11 rounds and then missing the 8, and then being the wooden spooners for the beginning of his last year in charge, and then being turned around by a complete rookie coach. Any employee is going to look at that and go, no.
I think Michael Checker's more chance of getting that job than Jason Demetriou.
It's between Checker, Riles.
I don't think Checker will get it, but he's more chance than Demetriou.
Barrett, apparently. There's a bit of a mess over at Parramatta. I don't know what's going on there. But, yeah, good news story for the Rabbitohs. Bulldogs sitting there pretty with their best points differential. Saw the post before the Panthers game, which was if the Panthers concede 12 points, then Bulldogs will overtake them, and Panthers conceded 18 in that win over the Knights.
Yeah.
So Panthers are now the second best defensive team in the competition.
It's amazing that the Bulldogs have got a better defensive record than the Panthers, although the Panthers have played one extra game. I will point that out, to be fair. But still, who would have seen that coming?
The Bulldogs, the Panthers have a much better, 40-point differential, just simply because they're also better in attack. But attack with good defence comes attack, and the Bulldogs are scoring some good points and tries at the moment. So
yeah, they are. Yeah.
I think they're pretty much entrenched in the top 8 right now, and I can't see any happenstance in which they'd miss it.
Yeah, I think a lot would have to go wrong for them not to make the 8 at this stage, especially just the way they're playing. Like you said, the attack is just clicking so well. They're just creating so many more opportunities in attack. They had a lot of disallowed tries in that game against Parramatta the week before last, and for a team like them, having that amount of disallowed tries is a good sign because they're creating a lot of opportunities. And yeah, like you mentioned, best defence in the league now. So, yeah, a lot would have to go wrong for them to miss the 8. I can't see them missing the 8 at this stage. I think they'd have to get a huge number of injuries to key players to miss the 8. Now.
Yeah, it's the 8 is really firming. There's obviously still every week just nonsense. I only tipped 4 from 8 this week because who saw the Raiders losing? Really? Yeah. Who saw the Raiders losing? I did tip Souths. Who saw the Tigers winning?
Yeah.
So
the team loses 9 in a row. You're not going to see them winning, are you?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it is. The tips are still all over the place, but you can pretty much kind of firm the 8 right now. There's now we actually have a differential between 8th and 9th. Last week, if you remember, there was 7 teams all on the same points. This week, there is actually a differential with the Sea Eagles with that 17 points and the Broncos sitting at 16th. 16 points.
16
so
points,
they're outside the 8. So it does now require teams to... The bottom 8 teams, or not the bottom 8, like the 9 through 13, you'd say, they need to win while teams above them lose. To get into the 8, to break into the 8 now. So it is really firming. Once you get to that point in the year, it kind of will continue for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and the Bulldogs are 6th, but if you had to put them in pecking order in terms of ability, I'd have the Bulldogs above the Roosters and the Dolphins. I think the Bulldogs are 4th in the pecking order at the moment behind those top 3. The Storm, the Panthers and the Sharks.
Oh, I think the Sharks are on a massive slide right now.
Yeah.
I think the Roosters...
I guess that's an overall, but I guess on form, you probably would have them above the Sharks at the moment too.
Yeah, I think the Sharks are they've won 10 and lost 4, and we've discussed it before. Their run home is super easy. They could get into that, but they're looking like that team they can't beat top 8 sides. They've done it once this year, but they just can't beat top 8 sides.
Yeah, I think they're developing a bit of a reputation for being flat track bullies, the Sharks. They're great front runners against weak opponents. You put them up against really quality sides, and they seem to have some problems. So
who was it they lost to?
The Dolphins.
Dolphins, yes.
We'll get to Nico Hines a bit later in the rundown, but he missed that conversion late to send it into Golden Point. So disappointing from the Sharks.
So yeah, they lost, and that was another one that everybody tipped the Sharks. Who nobody saw the Dolphins.
I haven't looked at what I got on the weekend. I don't think it was too crash hot.
I only got, like I said, I got 4 out of 8. Thanks, Penrith, for saving my round. But onto our rundown.
Yes.
I knew you'd want to get into the Bulldogs. That's what I thought. So New South Wales team and Queensland team have been named. We'll go on to the New South Wales teams first.
Yes.
Obviously, some changes one change due to player being unavailable in Joseph Suaalii after that much talked about send-off and suspension. And, as expected, Dylan Edwards has come into, because he was first choice in the first game, so Dylan Edwards was coming in to replace Tedesco, and Hines has been dropped after his showing in Origin 1 and his poor form in the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
Other than that, Cam McInnes has been dropped to the extended squad with Cameron Murray coming in to 13. Now, see, that one, I don't think there's a lot of controversy there. I think Cameron Murray probably would have been in the squad in the first place if he hadn't have been out injured.
Connor Watson in jersey 14.
That's a weird one because they dropped Burton for it. So that waste.
I think that's a harsh call. Matt Burton, the 18th player technically is in the team now because they're the concussion sub under the rules these days. So I think that's a very harsh call. He was 18th player for game 1. He's only played 1 game since that against Parramatta, and he played a starring role in that game. Didn't play on the weekend, obviously, because the Bulldogs had the bye, and then he's been snubbed here. Did Michael Maguire just forget about Matt Burton because his team had the bye? Because I thought Matt Burton should definitely have been in the 17 this time. I thought you could have even made an argument for him being at 5'8" instead of Jerome Luai. Although, to be fair, Luai did play well yesterday. I will point that out. That having been said, though, I thought there should have definitely at least been a spot for Burton on the bench. I think overlooking him for Connor Watson, I think that's a very harsh decision.
It's a bizarre decision. So the other choices, they're to be expected. Like I said, Dylan Edwards comes back. He was the first choice anyway, so Teddy's going to get dropped. Mitchell Moses was really the second choice anyway after Nathan Cleary, but he was unavailable and injured, and given the form of Nico Hines, he was going to get dropped. Cam Murray, you could argue, like I said, was always going to be in the squad and was replaced by Cam McInnes because he was injured. But bringing in Connor Watson to replace Matt Burton is a little bit of nonsense.
And what sort of message is the coach sending to some of these players, Michael Maguire? Does he not think about the messages he's sending to these players? Matt Burton's your 18th player in the side, doesn't get a run. So naturally a team that loses should be looking at the next cab off the rank in Matt Burton, especially given his really good form. As I said, played a starring role in that game against Parramatta. Does Michael Maguire not care about his players here or something? I know fair enough that Dylan Edwards has been recalled, but if you're James Tedesco, you're sitting there going, well, you didn't want me in the first place. Then you picked me only because Edwards was out injured, and now you've ditched me again for Edwards in the second game. So if Edwards goes down injured in this game, you wouldn't blame James Tedesco if for game 3 he goes, no, well, stuff you. You snubbed me in the first place, and then you recalled me, and then you've dropped me again. You can go find another fullback for game 3, Michael Maguire. Seriously.
I think Latrell Mitchell would go to fullback now. That's the other thing. Latrell Mitchell.
Yeah, I know. Look, I get that there are other reasons for it, right? But
no, I mean, I don't even think they'd approach.
What I mean? This coach just couldn't care less about
I get what you're saying.
how his players feel.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
Couldn't care less.
I think he doesn't. He's trying to pick the team that would win most of all. And in that situation in which if Dylan Edwards went down, I'd say Latrell Mitchell would be moved to fullback anyway. So Tedesco wouldn't even have that choice. Because Latrell Mitchell's also been in really good form.
He has, yeah. And we have been critical of Latrell Mitchell on this podcast. I think all our criticism was justified at that time because he had a horror start to the season. But as we always say, we give credit where it's due as well. And we've got to give him credit. He has turned his form around. And he scored a try in that game the other night, but they won. So well done to Latrell Mitchell on getting picked in New South Wales.
If you think him getting sin bin was fair, then you must be mad. It's crazy. Simply because the two punishments, the two crimes were not equal, but the punishments were. That was the weird thing about it. I mean, honestly, the inconsistency is still driving me insane, and I just can't stand it. Because something like that, I don't know if you saw Latrell Mitchell got sin bin for being a third man in, right? It was, and the other player, I can't remember who the other player was. It also
got sin bin.
Yeah,
Richie Canner.
Yeah. So he got sin bin because what he did was terrible, right? And the punishment has to fit the crime, and if the crimes are not equal, then the punishments can't be equal. Third man is technically a sin bin. So Latrell Mitchell deserves a sin bin. But when you compare it to the other sin bin, you just look at it and go, well, I don't understand. What is higher than a sin bin? A send-off. But you can't send the other player off because it wasn't worth a send-off. It was worth a sin bin. Therefore, Latrell Mitchell has to be downgraded as well. It's just bizarre in everything to do with this. All of it is crazy.
To be fair, he made, I think, his overall contribution made up for the fact that he was sin bin.
Yeah, absolutely.
There has been a noticeable turnaround.
And he's been fined.
And it's reflective in South Sydney's recent results of winning these 3 games in a row.
I don't think he should have got sin binned. That was crazy. Everything is... Well, actually, just to clarify all of that thing, I think he should have got sin binned. But when compared to the other crime, the other person should have got worse. Yeah, so Latrell Mitchell's in there. And, like I said, I would say that Tedesco wouldn't even have a chance of that. But I could totally understand if he did. Tedesco's a consummate professional. He wouldn't do anything like that.
I get it. But I just thought, and this coach has got to be careful he doesn't alienate too many players here.
I think the Matt Burton one is the epitome of unfairness in the team selection. And then the Tedesco thing is on a sliding, again, punishment, the sliding scale. James Tedesco being kind of screwed around. But, the difference between Matt Burton and Tedesco is everyone knew the outcome of the Tedesco situation. Once Edwards was named first in the first one, and then, Tedesco was never going to get picked, but unfortunately Edwards injured his calf and went through that. Everybody knew, unless New South Wales won, and even probably James Tedesco had a blinder, was going to...
I'll just make clear, I get why they've gone the way they've gone. I get why they're gone for Edwards, but I also would understand James Tedesco looking at it and going, all right, don't come ringing me for game 3 if he gets injured in game 2 and can't play in game 3.
Yeah, I can totally understand if he was... I
would understand if he felt that way.
But I don't think he would, in theory, but... combined with the fact that Matt Burton was dropped for no reason, literally zero reason. Yeah. There is no reason why Matt Burton isn't in the squad.
Yeah. So we talk about the 18th man is in the team now, all right? So he was in the team. He didn't actually feature in the game, so you can't hold any bad performance in the game against him. Then the team gets beaten. So if you're in any beaten team, you're looking at the next cabs off the rank. Who's going to come in? Then he goes and brains it against Parramatta, plays a starring role. Then his team has the bye. So he's done everything he could have possibly done up to this point to earn a call-up in the team, and he's been overlooked.
Yeah, it's not even in the squad.
So,
they have to name 20 people.
It's another... If you're Matt Burton for Game 3, it's a similar thing. You're going, well, you didn't want me last time, so maybe I'd rather play for the Bulldogs rather than play for the Blues.
So what I was saying was, when you look at Matt Burton, it can aggravate the situation with James Tedesco, because James Tedesco, like I said, everyone knew the outcome of what was going to happen with James Tedesco, but James Tedesco can look at the Matt Burton thing and go like, yeah, I'm fully not invested because basically look at how they've treated Matt Burton. I know how they're going to treat me. There is zero reason for Matt Burton to have been dropped from the squad because they retained Luke Keary, who was the 20th man last time. If anything, at the very minimum, Luke Keary should have been the one that was dropped and Matt Burton retained. But again, if anything, surely Matt Burton was moving to the 14, Luke Keary was moving to the 18, and Connor Watson was coming into the 20. Why is Connor Watson jumping the queue? Not bagging Connor Watson. He's a great player.
It's not his fault. He's going to take the opportunity. You can't blame him. Yeah. But they couldn't have at least had what Tedesco and Matt Burton as players 19 and 20. They couldn't have at least done them the courtesy. Because I get you got to pick a team to win the game. I get that, but you also have to treat people the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would have thought that putting Tedesco and Burton as players 19 and 20, all right, even if they're not going to be in the 18. That's at least showing them the courtesy they deserve. Yep. And at least if you had done that, well, at least maybe that you wouldn't have got their noses out of joint. Because they're two players who could still feature later in the series. If Edwards goes down injured again, which could happen, Tedesco could come into consideration for Game 3, and of course Matt Burton could come under consideration for Game 3. So you do, while you have to pick a team to win the game, you do have to be considerate of your players in case you might need them later on in the series.
Cameron McInnes and Luke Keary, again, not bagging them as players, they bring nothing to the squad that Matt Burton and...
Burton can cover the centres as well. Burton can cover more positions than Keary. Burton can cover the halves, all the centres. Keary can only cover the halves. So if you're having an extended squad, wouldn't you prefer a player who can cover more positions in case something goes wrong with your existing 18 players?
Connor Watson is 108 years old.
Luai played well against the Knights yesterday. Scored a try, had a line break assist, a try assist, 5 tackle breaks in the Panthers, 26-18 win over the Knights. And, of course, Mitchell Moses picked at halfback for the Blues too.
I think even Connor Watson is actually a strange choice because he hasn't played, even when he was fit at the beginning of the year, I think he didn't play. He wasn't named. And he didn't play all last year. It's a little bit weird. I don't know why Connor Watson's been jumped in. Overall, though, I think the team is actually better. With Edwards and Latrell in his form right now. That Latrell, Zach Lomax side of the field is two massive human beings, just massive, that are both... I just imagine the guys marking up against him are going to get peppered with kicks from Latrell and Zach Lomax, and you're going to see both of those guys can push an offload in tackles and bust tackles, and their post-contact meters are ridiculous. That's going to be a nightmare for the guys marking up against them. Those two guys together. And on the other side, you've got Brian Toto, who's one of the best wingers in the comp, and Stephen Crichton, who's one of the best centers in the comp as well. So I think the actually overall, to me, the team is better. I didn't think the outcome would be better. Then the only, way I would improve it would be to have Matt Burton on the bench over Connor Watson. That's it. The rest of it's great. Spencer Lenny, who had a cracker yesterday as well. It's a good team. I just fully can't understand why they just dropped Burton. There's no reason.
Yeah, very harsh treatment, that's for sure. Now, this just sort of moving along with this discussion with this team news. Mark Geyer actually called for the skipper Jake Trbojevic to be axed for this game. Now, personally, I think you've got to pick the team before you pick the captain. I think you pick your team first, and then you pick your captain. So. I'm not one of those people who thinks, but we've got to have him because he's our captain. No. You pick the team first, and then you pick the captain out of the team that's been picked. So that was an interesting take from MG. I think he wanted someone like Mitch Barnett in there, who's been named as 18th man, actually.
I think
MG was calling for him to be picked ahead of Jake Trbojevic.
I think one thing, actually, Craig Gow dropped by the other day after we had recorded our podcast, and I recorded another podcast with him. Yeah. One of the things he suggested, which I really liked, was Isaiah Yeo coming in at 8 and being captain.
And he was another one MG mentioned as well. And MG was calling for him to play 80 minutes, for Isaiah Yeo to play 80 minutes. So.
It'll be more than Jake Trebojevic's 25 minutes.
And that's the thing, Isaiah Yeo has been co-captain in the last 3 premiership wins. So, and if you weren't going to go for him, well, you got Stephen Crichton, who's the Bulldogs. There's other captaincy options as well. So there's no need to be picking Jake Trbojevic just because he's the captain. He only played about 25 minutes.
It was 25 minutes, and it was taken off the field and didn't come back. And that's one of the things, right? The criticisms that Michael Maguire has come under, because it still hasn't been explained. Why was he taken off? Why was the captain front row forward taken off the field? You take forwards off after 25 minutes. You do. Front row forwards, they play like 25 whatever minutes, and then someone comes on and replaces. Then you rotate them back on. Why was he taken off at 25 minutes and didn't feature again? That's your captain and your starting front rower. Again, nobody's explained it. Nobody's given any explanation. The only explanation we've received is basically, I don't have to explain my interchange rotation to you. We kind of do.
Did Maguire say that?
No, he didn't actually say that. But that's the kind of insinuation. Like, when asked about it, there's just been, no answer.
Well, no, yeah. It's
all part of the game plan.
You've got to explain yourself.
Things like it's all part of the game plan and all that kind of stuff. But that's the kind of feeling you get. I don't have to explain it to you.
Well, it wasn't much of a game plan getting beaten 38-10 in game 1.
So it's...
So there is that feeling among the fans. There is that feeling, and we've got to say it again, that Jake Trbojevic is overrated. There's a feeling that he shouldn't really be on $950,000 a year that he's on. There's a feeling that he's only being paid that amount at Manly to keep his brother happy. There's a feeling that if you were to pay him what he's worth on the salary cap, it's probably more like only about $600,000 a year rather than the $950 he's on. So... We've got to be honest about it. There is that chatter among the fans. We talk about the chatter among the fans about Ricky Stewart all the time and how the media protect him and everything. Well, you might be able to say a similar thing about Jake Trbojevic, I think.
Yeah, well, the Trbojevic brothers all get a lot of protection from the media because they're so well liked around the grounds, basically. And I kind of tend to agree with Mark Geyer. I think he should be. I think Jake Trbojevic should have been dropped if Michael Maguire wasn't going to use him for more than 25 minutes. It's just a waste of time. That was the thing about Spencer Leniu. He started on the weekend for the fourth time in his 88 games he's played or something like that.
It's just that you sort of think, does Jake Trbojevic, does he have that grunt about him that you need? You think about some past New South Wales forwards, like Paul the Chief Harrigan comes to mind, right? Mark Spud Carroll, blokes who'd, run into a brick wall if they had to for you. Mark O'Mealy, these sorts of front rowers. I just don't know whether, even someone like a Paul Gallen, who's not a front rower, but would still, he'd run into a brick wall for you.
Played 80 minutes at Origin in the front row.
Actually, yeah. I mean, he did play at front row, even though most of the time he was in the back row. Yeah. There is that feeling about Jake Trbojevic. Is he that front rower who would run into a brick wall for you?
Well, not if he's sitting on the bench for 65 minutes. 65 minutes? 55 minutes? And not if he's sitting on the bench for 55 minutes, he won't. This is one of the things. It's kind of a bizarre Well, like I said, I agree with Mark Geyer, actually. Like, he should be dropped as captain at the very least, but I think if he's going to be named, he should be on the bench, and actually, to be honest, I don't think he should have been named at all. But I think overall the team is better, so it doesn't really matter. If they win, then everything is genius.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing. The main thing about Origin. If they win, everything is genius.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully they have a win. I think we want to see a decider. We don't want a dead rubber for Game 3.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
But now we got some news about Nathan Cleary.
Yes. So, I think Nathan Cleary would have been available as early as next weekend if Penrith didn't have the bye. So Penrith have got the bye, and then they've got games against the Cowboys and the Broncos in round 17 and 18 before Origin 3 teams are named. So Nathan Cleary is expected to be playing in both those games, and so there's obviously the prospect that that's going to create a dilemma for New South Wales selection. Assuming he comes back and all's well and he plays well in those 2 games and gets through them okay.
Even if they win.
It's all going to depend on what... I think, a lot's going to depend on what happens in Game 2.
I think even if they win.
So even if they win and Luai and Moses both play well, you'd still bring Cleary back?
No, I think there'd still have to be a discussion, no matter what.
There'd have to be a discussion.
And based on the fact that Nathan Cleary is the best halfback currently in the world, the discussion would surely be heavily weighted in Nathan Cleary's favour to be recalled no matter what. You think of it like, all right, if any team, Australia, Queensland, whatever, or New South Wales, if Jonathan Thurston wasn't available to play for Australia for the first game of the series, the second game of the series, and they carved up and won, and then Jonathan Thurston was available, would you pick him? Doesn't matter who the 7 is.
I guess the only counter to that would be Jonathan Thurston's a very much proven performer on the Origin stage, and even Craig Gower said, I know you had him on the other day, but a while back he said, I think when I did a podcast with him at the start of the season, Craig Gower said, well, if there's one thing about Nathan Cleary, only one thing, is he hasn't really owned the Origin stage just yet. So that's my only counter, is that, Thurston was a proven performer, Cleary not so much yet at Origin level. And then, so if New South Wales were to win Game 2 and Luai and Moses play really well, does it create some sort of dilemma? Put it this way, if New South Wales lose Game 2, Cleary's in the Game 3 team in a heartbeat. No questions asked. But if they win Game 2, Luai and Moses play really well, and then they bring Cleary back for Moses, right, hypothetically, and then New South Wales lose Game 3, and if Cleary doesn't have such a good game, I know we're getting into deep hypotheticals here, given that that's a fair way down the path. But then Michael Maguire might have some questions to answer. I know it's a tough one, because this has been the halfback in the team that's won the last 3 premierships.
Yeah, it's just as simple that there'd be a discussion. The discussion would be weighted in the fact that, we'd have to bring him in. I think what's most likely to happen actually is the bench rotation would change. Or
what also could happen is, Moses could shift to 5/8 and Cleary would be the halfback.
But I think the simplest thing would be Connor Watson gets replaced by Nathan Cleary on the bench if they win. That's as simple. If they win, and then in the event of a game clinching kind of position or like a game changing.
So worst case scenario for Cleary would be a bench spot.
Yeah.
Assuming that he gets through the 2 games unscathed and he's fit and available.
Because you got to also think, again, we're moving into a lot of hypotheticals, right?
We are.
You think, what would happen if New South Wales win Game 2, then Parramatta go terribly for the next 2 weeks, and Mitchell Moses has the 2 worst games of his life, and Nathan Cleary comes back and he's Nathan Cleary. That's what I mean. All the discussion will be weighted in Nathan Cleary's favour, unless Nathan Cleary has 2 shocking games, which never happens, or gets injured. But it'll all be weighted in his favour. It doesn't necessarily mean any change would be made, but it will be weighted in his favour. And the absolute worst scenario would be that he's not picked at all. then it would go to he's in the squad. Then it would go to he's on the bench. Then it would go to Mitchell Moses getting dropped.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the conversation we had at the opening. Like, what does that say to the players?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it'd be one thing to have Luai and Moses in the team ahead of him, assuming they play really well in New South Wales with. But it would, you're right, it would be another thing to have Connor Watson ahead of him on the bench, leaving Nathan Cleary out for Connor Watson. Let's remember, this is the halfback who's won the last 3 premierships. This is the Tom Brady of the NRL, Nathan Cleary.
Absolutely. Well, Tom Brady is the Nathan Cleary of the NFL. No. Yeah, so that's the New South Wales team, and that's Nathan Cleary possibly coming back. The Queensland team was named this morning.
Yes, only at 9 o'clock, so it's fresh off the press.
Obviously, Reece Walsh was always going to be named.
Yeah.
Selwyn Cobbo is out, though, so that means we lose Cobbo from the bench. Bizarrely. Which ended up working out well. Jermaine Hopgood is also out. And Felice Kafusi has been brought in.
Yeah, back injury for Hopgood, yep.
And Kurt Capewell's returning to the side.
Yeah, Dane Gagai.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that.
Man,
surprisingly, Dane Gagai has been brought in as 18th man. Not like that guy's a quality player, but he's playing in a Knights team that is terrible and hasn't played since 2022? Yeah, 2022 it says here. Yeah.
Yeah, 22 games he's played for Queensland between 2015 and 2022.
And then the extended team is Lukey and Trent Lauro.
Yes.
There's not much to talk about. It was just mainly that Reece Walsh is back and Cobbo's out.
Well, a team that wins that resoundingly are only going to make force changes. They're not going to change the team if they don't have to.
I saw some instant chatter about Reece Walsh hasn't even played since then. Why would you name him? Because he's Reece Walsh, bro.
Yeah. Some players are, exempt from needing to play a game again before they get picked. And Reece Walsh is one of those players.
Yeah, so there's not much to go. Like, that's the thing. When you win, you don't make changes.
Unless you have to, you've got injuries or suspensions.
And so at the end, right now, after teams named, the Maroons are the favourites in Melbourne at $1.78 to the Blues, $2.08. Bet with your head not over it. What are you prepared to lose today? Maroons are favourite. It's going to be in Melbourne on the 26th of June. I'm trying to get myself some tickets so I can go down there and watch it.
Nice.
Still on Origin, still on the Joseph Sawali hit. Technically, it's not. It's kind of Origin, not Origin, but yeah, we're still in Origin. The Johns brothers have both had
yes, they're both waiting now. I watched that Penrith Newcastle game yesterday, and the Matty Johns show comes straight off the back of that game. Yeah. So I don't normally watch the show. I'm not a fan. It's a silly carry on that show. I'm not a fan of it, but it was on for 2 minutes. I watched the first 2 minutes, and I was sort of taken aback by... Joseph Suaalii was on the Matty Johns show, and I was taken aback by how Matty Johns started the interview with him. And I thought, oh, gee, I better go get the iPad out and write these quotes down for the podcast. So this is what Matty Johns said to Suaalii. The first thing when he's on the show, he says... Talking to Suaalii, Matty Johns says, and I quote, "Sometimes you only need to see one thing to be convinced of something." I go on, quoting Matty Johns, "Your first touch of the football in Origin, that first run you did," talking to Suaalii, he says, "I think just told everyone you were perfectly suited for it. And I really hope you get a crack for State of Origin 3. You can't beat yourself up. It's just part of the game. It's just what happens." The guy was sent off after 7 minutes of the game, and you're talking about his first touch of the ball in the game.
I don't even remember it.
Like, come on, seriously. I know that it's a different sort of show, that one. I know it's not a hard-hitting show, and I know Matty Johns is a likeable sort of character. But come on, if you're getting Suaalii on the show, you can be a bit more hard-hitting than that. You got to say, look, given how much of a bearing your send-off had on the game, do you feel like you let your state down in that instance? You could have said something like that. But I just thought that was a real, that was a real suck-up job, that interview.
I don't even remember him carrying the ball.
Well, who would? Who would? He was sent off after 7 minutes.
What was his stats?
He's been suspended. I mean, you'd be very surprised if he features in Game 3. I'd be very surprised. I think a lot would have to happen for him to feature in Game 3. And then he's going off to rugby union. So it could be... It could be, the most disappointing State of Origin career of all time. A player who's sent off after 7 minutes in his only Origin game.
I'd say for him to be recalled, New South Wales would have to lose, and he'd have to have a couple of blinders to take Stephen Crichton and Latrell Mitchell's spots.
Yeah.
Or Zach.
What a softball interview that was. You were sent off after 7 minutes, but that first carry you had, that was really good. I mean, come on, like seriously, you got to do better than that. If you got a guy who's just been sent off in a State of Origin game after 7 minutes on your TV show, and you're trotting that out.
Well, I think Matty John's show is just like a duplicate of the footy show.
Yeah, it's a fairy floss show,
which is off. Got cancelled for a reason. So yeah, I've only ever watched one episode when I'm not watching this ever again. Joseph Suaalii knows he did wrong. I think everybody should watch Craig Gower's interpretation of the tackle. It's really interesting how he talks about like the arching of the back and the tackle, because Gower's talked about it a lot on this podcast about how they don't tackle anymore. They don't tackle properly anymore. He did it talked about the first time he was on with you. He talked about the second time he was on with both of us. And he was very, gave praise to Suaalii's tackling technique. Like it was like an actual proper rugby league tackle, and compared it to the Taylor and May head clash on Reece Walsh at the beginning of the year. But yeah, like Joseph Suaalii's as you said, he's let the whole state down. I think I talked about it. Like I immediately just thought the Origin's over. Queensland's won.
Yeah, and it was their home game as well. That's how vital that send-off was. He got sent off early in their home game. It's pretty much cost them their home game, even though I thought they probably would have lost, even if he had stayed on the field. So that's it. That's cost them their home game. And given how hard it is for New South Wales to win deciders in Brisbane, you can't understate how crucial that send-off was in the context of this series.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, I'm kind of pessimistic. I think New South Wales people are pretty pessimistic about the outcomes of State of Origin given the history. But, yeah, it was that was kind of the sentiment at the ground, and in all the messages I got, well, that's cost them the series. So Joseph Suaalii hasn't, as far as I know, addressed that sentiment to the fans. I know he apologised to Reece Walsh, and he's upset with the outcome, but no one's sat him down and said, like, what do you got to say to everyone for this? Because the sentiment right now is New South Wales going to lose another series.
And this is what we come back to with State of Origin. Like as I said, I watched some of that interview last night. He didn't look like somebody who cared that much.
What's going on?
That he'd got himself sent off, that he'd let his state down. He's going to rugby union at the end of the year. And this is the whole problem with State of Origin as it is at the moment. The overall feeling that New South Wales just don't care as much as Queensland. And Joseph Suaalii gave me that feeling watching it last night. He looked like someone who wasn't that fussed about what had happened, and that he was looking forward to going to rugby union. If a Queensland player had done the same thing, I think they would have cared a lot more and felt a lot more remorse about letting their state down.
One of the things I've heard about Suaalii is he has that demeanour of lack of caring, but he's actually a really passionate person. And it's just like you have to get to know him, and he has to be really comfortable with you to show it.
Yeah, I mean, you can only go on what you see. Yeah,
exactly.
Right? That's all you can do.
So that's the thing. Like, you can look at him, but we don't know. But, that's... Unless someone actually asks and he gives an answer, people can justify and defend Suaalii like that and say, like, just because you don't really know him, like, from all reports of the people who know him, he's really passionate and he's really upset. But unless he shows it and does it, everybody in the world is just going to think, well, he doesn't care. And that just continues that New South Wales thing. When you look at Andrew Johns and the way he talks about New South Wales, I think he is the epitome, the highest level. the extreme, the way he talks about it, that is what people want to see from New South Welshmen. You know?
Yeah.
How upset he is over things, how excited he is over things when it comes to Origin. That's what you want to see. And when you look at most Queenslanders, that's what they're all like at their lowest level.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a really good point. I think Phil Gould really cares as well.
Yeah.
And that's Andrew Johns and Phil Gould are probably the two who care the most.
Those guys like Andrew Johns and stuff, and I have actually been in person and heard Phil Gould say it. Like, it's stupid that people outside the game say that and think that. Right, that's what they say. These guys like Phil Gould, Andrew Johns, Matty Johns, all these old school Origin players and stuff. They say it's stupid that people outside the game think that New South Wales players don't care. The simple fact is, when you look at their behaviour, even if in private they really care, it looks like they don't care. So if you want to reverse that perception, you have to display the emotion. And when you look at it, no one would ever say Andrew Johns doesn't care about Origin as much as a Queenslander.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and that's a good point. And I remember that Matty and Andrew Johns had a bit of a spat on the radio.
Yeah, very
because Matty
practical
Johns
joke.
was talking up Queensland, and Andrew Johns got worked up saying, "Oh, you know what? Why are you talking up Queensland so much?" And it's that sort of passion that's what New South Wales need. It's what they lack a lot. Now, I know two of our ambassadors have played for New South Wales, Craig Gower and Mitchell Pearce. I'm sure they care very much about Origin. I'm sure they do. I'm sure all New South Wales ex-players do. But as fans from the outside looking in, we can only go on what we see.
Exactly.
We can only comment on what we see externally. And while we haven't played at that level, we're still entitled to give our opinion based on what we observe.
But the passion for something, an emotion for something, overcomes control. So if that's like, you don't know, all of the people who are in it say no, everyone outside is wrong. Everyone outside is wrong. Queenslanders are wrong. Media is wrong. Fans are wrong. All of the New South Wales Welshmen fully care as much as Queenslanders, right? But the fact that they can, in theory, control their emotions and passion when it comes to things is one of the most evidence-based things you can look at. Like, Andrew Johns can't control himself. He just can't. And they'll always say, like, he wears his heart on his sleeve and stuff like that, right? That's what passion and emotion is.
Yes.
It means you can't... The passion for something means you can't control your emotions and you can't control how it comes out. Whereas they want to say as much as they want to say, like, no, every New South Wales player is so passionate about their team, but they never show it.
And that's the thing. It comes back to that Matty Johns interview with Suoliti, right? If a Queensland player had got sent off and an ex-Queensland player was interviewing Suoliti, do you think it would have been that stuck-up interview that it was, or would it have been a more stern, oh, how could you let our state down like that?
And that's because they wouldn't be able to control their emotions. If same thing. If Andrew Johns had been given that interview, do you think it would have been like a soft? It would have been, Andrew Johns would have said to him, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?"
100%. 100%. And I remember it might have been just towards the end of Jonathan Thurston's Origin career, where Jonathan Thurston got injured and he was out on the wing defending. And Andrew Johns went ballistic after one of the games, saying, "Why didn't we target him? We should have kept going out to him. That's the sort of passion that we're looking for.
I don't think anyone can deny that some New South Wales players are 100% as passionate as Queensland. You know, no one can deny that, because then you look at people like Andrew Johns and Phil Gould and like other people that you mentioned before. You look at them and how they behave now. Like Craig Gower, he's like really, really gets worked up and stuff. You can't deny they are just as passionate as Queenslanders. But as a whole, from the outside looking in, you can easily deny that it looks like, or you can easily say that it looks like New South Wales aren't as passionate about it as Queensland. And that's coming from a New South Wales fan who's a diehard, passionate New South Wales supporter who wears my heart on my sleeve at the games and stuff like that. And I get really worked up about shit like Matt Burton missing the 8, like that, the missing the squad. Like, that really annoys me. That makes me upset because I'm a massive Matt Burton fan and New South Wales fan. But these guys that are sitting there going, oh, well, he just got sent off. What's he going to do is, it's fine. That's just what we're going to live with now. That's what gives everybody that perception. And if you want to correct the perception, unleash them. Let them be passionate. Let them show their emotions.
This is the thing, you walk down the main street in Brisbane on an Origin night near the Caxton Hotel. You see everyone in Queensland jerseys, Queensland streamers around. It's all the talks. Queensland, Queensland, Queensland. You walk down George Street in Sydney on the night of a State of Origin game, you wouldn't even know that the game's on. You would not even know that the game's on. And so that's the thing, like ex-New South Wales players will say, we're passionate. It's like, yeah, you are because you played for New South Wales. For New South Wales fans, you care about your club side far more than you care about the New South Wales side. It's different for Queenslanders. I think Queenslanders care more about the Queensland Origin team than they do about the Broncos or the Titans or the Cowboys or the Dolphins or whichever Queensland team they support. But your New South Wales fans care far more about the Bulldogs or the Dragons than they do about the New South Wales team.
Yeah, no, that's I think one of the indicators or one of the things that you can see that happen that you can see that is that the conspiracy theories where Jonathan Thurston changed to 5'8" for the Cowboys because he was going to be changed to 5'8" for Queensland to allow Cooper Cronk to play 7. That was a conspiracy theory. You never know. As I told Mitchell Pearce, that gave me the indicator that there's no difference between 5'8" and halfback because Jonathan Thurston didn't change his game at all when he moved from halfback to 5'8". But it was just playing on the opposite side of the field. Anyway,
yes.
Yeah, that's kind of gone off track. But we are talking about the Johns brothers, and now Andrew Johns on the other hand. He's had something to say about Suaalii send-off as well.
Yeah, well, he's changed his tune. So on the night, I think he was disappointed that Suaalii was sent off, but he sort of changed his tune on it. He said that it does now deserve to be a send-off and there has to be ramifications for serious acts of foul play. He says it wasn't a deliberate act, but he got it wrong, so the consequences must be severe. I think he's right. I don't think the referee should have to think about the ramifications for the crowd or the TV viewers. It's not the referee's job to be thinking about the crowd or the TV viewers. It's the referee's job to officiate to the rule book. And so I think Andrew Johns pointed that out as well, and I think he's got a point there.
I always maintain that Reece Walsh fell over, and that's why it shouldn't be a send-off. Because a send-off is for foul play. And Andrew Johns just said it wasn't foul play. If Suaalii had a coat hang at Reece Walsh, it should have been a send-off. But Reece Walsh slipped over.
Yeah.
His head dropped 2 feet and they end up getting hit in a... I don't know. There's now lots of conjecture because the TV angles also don't show it. But to me, it looks like he didn't get hit in the head and it just was a happenstance. But sin binning, yeah. Punishment, yeah. On report, yeah. But if I was... as I said before, if I was the Roosters, I would have fought to get the charge downgraded. 4 weeks and 5 weeks, basically the same thing when it comes to the suspension, because it was 4 weeks with an early guilty plea, 5 weeks without. I would have fought to get the charge downgraded. Yeah. I know you think it was a send-off, but it's just...
Yeah, I just think we're at a point now where... And we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, but I just think we're at a point where it doesn't matter that he was falling. I mean, connected with his head. It didn't look good. We're at a point now where we're trying to stamp out this contact to the head. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to agree on this. No. We might just have to disagree on it.
I think that one of the conjectures I saw on the internet was because the play continued, it was 2 more plays, which is ridiculous to me. Why I think Ashley Klein was...
that was a mistake. The play shouldn't have continued. Yeah. He should have stopped play right there and
But if the play had have continued and Reece Walsh was running around in the background, nothing would have ever happened.
Yeah, it would have been... stayed down.
Yeah, it would have been put on report. I mean, it would have been charged by the match review committee afterwards. Right? And if... outcome of injury is the determiner of punishment in the moment and the game, then you should never get a sin binning for a hip drop because there's no injury.
That's the thing. The what happens to the player should be irrelevant.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It shouldn't come into it. So what happens to Reece Walsh should be irrelevant, whether he's ruled out of the game or not. I think that they can't help but take it into account.
Yeah,
they can't help it. If Reece Walsh goes down and with a Category 1 HIA he can't come back on, I think that, of course, that gets in the referee's head, and subconsciously he goes, well, they've taken Reece Walsh out of the game, so that means, well, we've got to really do something about it and send Suaalii off. What also should be irrelevant is the calibre of player.
Definitely.
The fact that it's Reece Walsh should not matter. If it was Queensland's 17th best player, the decision should be the same whether it happens to their 17th best player as if it happens to Reece Walsh. That's my view on it. All having been said, I still think it was the right decision.
If it was a 35th player in a squad that was called up on the weekend for the Bulldogs versus Parramatta Wooden Spoon game, it's still exactly the same thing.
It annoys me when, and it might have been Buzz Rothfield on NRL 360 who said, I think it might have been the day after the game, who said, it was Reece Walsh a star player. And I thought, no, that's irrelevant.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
It doesn't matter who the player is. It doesn't matter. And it's about the offence. It's not about who the offence is.
That kind of nonsense is what creates the disagreement. It creates the controversy. Now, you had on the weekend hip drop sin binning and a dangerous lifting tackle sin binning in 2 different games. All right? I saw them both, and I've now seen on the internet comparisons to the James Tedesco lifting tackle in the Origin, which didn't result in a sin binning, and the Spencer Leniu hip drop, where Spencer Leniu got hip dropped. Now, that Spencer Leniu hip drop is what injured him and took him off the field and kept him off the field, and it wasn't even a sin binning. And again, that is the criticism of the game and the ref and the inconsistency in the game. That is what creates these disagreements where some people think he should have been sent off and some people shouldn't, because you can now always go back and find a precedent where it's like, no, well, in this one he didn't get sent off. And in that one, he only got sin binned. And in that one, he got nothing. And in that one, he got banned for 12 weeks. And in that one, because there's so much inconsistency, that's what creates the disagreements. Yep. And I think one thing that everyone can agree on in rugby league is we all wish there was consistency.
Yeah, 100%. All that having been said, though, I still agree with the decision, though. So.
Yeah, that's it's just, I think we'll have to see what happens this game with who the ref is. I wonder who the ref's going to be named. When does the ref get named? I still think it shouldn't be Ashley Klein.
Well, let's have a look here and see if the referee has been named.
I don't know if it gets named. I think it gets named.
In the match centre for the game. They don't even have the teams in there yet, so I don't.
No, I think because the referees are allocated a week for the week, so it won't be. We won't know until the.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Klein gets a recall or
because not. Whether you think it was a send off or not, and whether you think that is the determining factor on whether Klein. Because if you think it was a send off of offence, then Ashley Klein should retain his spot based solely only on that that instance, right? If you think it wasn't a send-off or offable offence, then Ashley Klein shouldn't retain his spot based on that instance. But then if you go and look at the rest of the game, Ashley Klein shouldn't retain his spot because of things like the Tedesco lifting tackle not being a sin.
Yeah, you got to look at the whole game. Yeah. I mean, the send-off decision will be part of the decision, but you've got to look at the whole performance, not just one decision. But then again, coming back to consistency, if Belinda Clark retained her spot after that terrible game she had at the beginning of the year, then there's no reason why Ashley Klein shouldn't retain his spot. You mean Casey Badger?
Oh, Casey Badger. Sorry, Belinda Clark. Sorry.
Yeah, Belinda Sharp's done a good job.
Yeah.
You meant Casey Badger.
Yeah, Casey Badger retained her spot after that terrible game she had. Then Ashley Klein should retain his spot because consistency, same punishment, same result.
Yeah, I think they will. he'll be more accountable though, given the stage, won't he? Given that it's, I mean, he shouldn't be, but he will be because it's state of origin, not just regular NRL games.
So we'll see what happens with the refs. Hopefully I get some tickets. Anyone got some tickets? Shoot them my way. In NRL news, Canberra got smashed. Nobody expected them to lose, but they're on a really rapid downward slide, and it looks like my prediction for Canberra is starting to come through, where I said they would miss the 8. They're currently at minus 55 on the points differential, even though they've won more games than they've lost. They got absolutely slaughtered on the weekend by the Cowboys. It was ridiculous, 34-16.
They lost, so now they've lost
at home.
Yes, they've lost 2 of their last 3, the Raiders. They've also lost 3 straight games at home at GIO Stadium. So this recent record at GIO Stadium is a real problem for the Raiders. 40-0 loss to the Sharks in round 8. 44-16 thrashing at the hands of the Roosters in round 12. So this is a real problem, losing these games at home. And this is the time of year where they should be really good at home. It's so cold there that they should, it should be just a nightmare for away teams to go to Canberra at this time of year. You get these minus 5 degree nights, and this is when Canberra is supposed to be really good at home. This is when they're supposed to be coming into their own and winning these home games in the winter months.
But no. And then, of course, Ricky Stewart has had a
tanty.
In the post-game press conference.
He was blaming the referees again. He said he thought that there should have been a sin bin after the Cowboys gave away 4-6 agains on their own goal line. A reporter quizzed him about losing their last 3 home games, and he said, "What do you think? What do you think we're trying? You think we're trying to lose at home?" That's what he said to the reporter.
Yeah, that's what the reporter's asking.
So the reporter's not allowed to question him about them losing 3 games at home, and not just losing, being thumped in 3 games in a row at home. And he gets all testy with the reporter and defensive. And he was asked about the reaction of the fans, saying, "I'm not out there with the fans at half time."
Because they got booed off. Got booed off the field.
Yeah, they did. And he's answerable to the fans, though. Maybe the fans are booing because their coach has been re-signed until 2029, even though he hasn't won a premiership there in the last 10 years of being there. Maybe they're not happy because they've only really contended in 3 of those 10 years and they've never won it in that time. 5 finals appearances in 10 years, and in 2 of those they completely bombed out. So they've only come remotely close 3 of the 10 times and they've never won it. I wonder what excuses that posse of journalists are going to make for him this time. What are they going to say again? That, it's hard for the Raiders to recruit players because no one lives in Canberra, even though they never made those excuses for previous Raiders coaches?
Yeah, well, you can blame the refs all you want. But when you lose 34-16, it's not the refs that are at fault. It's just not. And it's you can blame the first half, all right? Like, he can blame the first half and how terrible they were, because the Cowboys went into the sheds like up 22-0. 22 or 24-0, I can't remember exactly.
22-0,
yeah. 22-0. And then they won the second half, which is a nonsense thing that people try to do to alleviate how bad their team was. Who
cares about that?
Yeah.
No one. They lost the game.
Like I always say,
no one cares.
If only there was some kind of way, like a numerical value we could assign to which was the better team at the end.
But that's what his supporters in the media will say. They'll say, the Raiders won the second half. They'll go to any lengths to defend him. They'll make that defence. They'll say, but they won the second half.
It's irrelevant
cares about that.
Because there's a numerical value you can assign to the quality of the teams. And this one was around, the Cowboys were around 34 points good, and the Raiders were around 16 points good, with a points differential of 18 points.
A win's a win.
The Cowboys were 18 points better for the game.
Yeah. A win's a win and a loss is a loss, and they've now lost 3 straight at home, resounding.
There's some sports in the world where the last score wins the game, okay?
Like tennis.
And
rugby. You win the last point, you win the match.
Rugby league is not one of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so it's irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. Yeah, Cowboys are on a slide. Who have they got this week?
The Raiders.
The Raiders are on a slide. Who have they got this week? I feel like I'm drunk or something.
I'll check it out.
Tigers this week. So they win that, and then everything is saved, and we're all good now. We've beat the Tigers.
Yeah, they won't talk. They won't talk about him this week because they've lost. They'll wait for next week against the Tigers until they probably win. Well, they'd be favourites.
And then they're going to have to go to Melbourne to play the Storm, and it'll be all the refs' fault when they get smashed.
Yeah. The journalists who love Ricky will they'll just immerse themselves in the Origin teams being named. They'll ignore the Raiders' loss, and they'll only focus on the Raiders again when they start winning games.
Yeah. Or we touched on Nico Hines before.
Yeah.
Look, the Sharks were tipped by everyone to win. They were the heavy favourites. I think it's time people stopped tipping the Sharks, to be honest, against top 8 teams. They've got a really easy run home. But Nico Hines, in the last minute, had a chance to level up the scores and send the game into Golden Point with not the most easy kick in the world for 2 points. Not the most difficult.
He didn't come close.
Yeah, and he shanked it so bad.
It wasn't as if he came close. Not that it matters. You either kick it or you miss it. But
you look at, there was the Jonathan Thurston in the Brisbane grand final where Jonathan Thurston had a chance to level the scores.
Yeah, and he hit the post.
It was all the way over and he hit the post. So
that was a chance to win the game. Wasn't it?
To win the game,
and then it went in a Golden Point and he kicked the field goal.
So he fouled on that, but you can't say he fouled because of pressure. Because he came close.
He hit the post.
And he hit the post. Whereas in this one, you look at that and it was all pressure was on Nico Hines. You are the number one most important person right now. And the way it's one of those ones that in 10 years it's going to be listed on the 10 worst goal kicks of all time. It's a shocker.
Yeah, it goes about 20
metres away.
Everybody remembers the kicks you have to either win the game or level the game at the end.
This was a shocker. It was they missed by 20 metres, or not 20 metres, but 10 metres. And the rest of the game wasn't that good. The whole Sharks team didn't look good. I don't know. I see a lot of criticism from Craig Fitzgibbons as a coach, but he has been in the finals every time. It's just the Sharks culture. Is this actually high pressure moments? They can't overcome it, and it's Nico Hines is right now the epitome of it because he's been dropped for Origin and stuff, but that is just part of the whole Sharks culture. They just can't win when there's any pressure.
Yeah, that's right. And they finished 6th last season, lost in the first week of the finals to the Roosters, went out. So I think at the start of the season, from memory, they might have been one of those teams where you looked at the draw and thought, geez, they've got it pretty easy.
Yeah, it's the easiest draw. Ridiculous easy.
I think they had the easiest draw of all the teams at the start of the year. So they're starting to get a reputation of being flat track bullies, that they beat up on bottom sides, that they do well in the regular season, but when the crunch comes in the big games, they go missing. It wasn't just the goal kick from Nico Hines. He gave away a crucial escort penalty, allowing Jermaine Asako to put the Dolphins 6 points clear. So that's the thing. It wasn't just the missed goal kick. Yeah. I mean, he wouldn't have had to kick the goal if he didn't give away the escort penalty and allow Jermaine Asako to put them clear by 6 points. So, you're starting to get that feeling that Nico Hines is not a clutch player. That he's a great front runner, but he does struggle when the pressure's on.
Yeah,
and that can be a hard tag to shake. He's been dropped for Origin 2. Didn't have a great game in Origin 1. I know he wasn't on for long last year when he played Origin, only played 10 minutes or so out of position, but that's twice now he's played in Origin, hasn't aimed up. When the pressure's on him,
I think
can he deliver? I'm not sure that he can.
I think it's the culture of the Sharks. It's not just Nico Hines. Nico Hines is their most famous and best player and everything, but I think it's the Sharks.
Yeah, well, they've only won one premiership in their existence.
The Sharks culture since then, especially since Flano left. So the Sharks have this continued easy run. They got the Bulldogs this week, next in round 17, which they're going to definitely get smashed. But then they've got Titans, Tigers, Cowboys, one of the most inconsistent teams. They do have the Rabbitohs. They got Titans for a second time. They've got the Dragons. They got they're going to have an easy run, scrape into the 8 and drop out again. And it's because they're only going to be playing the Bulldogs. I think the Rabbitohs may be a hard game. and the Warriors and Sea Eagles. Warriors are pretty bad, going pretty poorly this year. Sea Eagles are the other team in the 8. They've only got 2 current top 8 matches for the rest of the year. And so it's the Sharks. Unfortunately, I really wonder if Nico Hines left the Sharks and went somewhere else, could he become that clutch player? Because it's a Sharks cultural problem that is causing this. And they need a coach to go in there and fix that. Is Craig Fitzgibbons the coach? I don't know. He's been there, 2 years?
It hasn't been that long. I'm just going to check that.
Might have been just last year, actually.
I'm just going to check when he started there. Started there in 2022.
Oh, yeah,
so
so
it's
2
his
years.
third season.
Yeah. And he's making it into the 8, but it's always the same. They've got the easiest run. They get to beat up on the low-ranked teams and can't beat the top 8. And so, yeah, I just wonder if Nico Hines went to another club that doesn't have that cultural problem as a club, could he then go on to be, really good and overcome that issue? But while he's at the Sharks, and the Sharks have that issue as a culture deeply embedded in their culture, can he be? They're going to need someone to bring him out of that. They need to either bring in someone like Sonny Bill, who changes the culture of their club, or players like Nico Hines need to go somewhere else to get out of that culture.
Well, we've talked about it before. You were hoping, and it was such a long premiership drought. There was that old line that, by waiting for the Sharks to win a premiership is like leaving the porch light on for Harold Holt. So you sort of hoped after that very long drought-breaking premiership win in 2016 that the Sharks would go, that'd be the start of maybe a run of 2 or 3 premierships for the Sharks. But it seems like it's gone the other way. And they've won that premiership in 2016 and gone, because we haven't won it for so long, we're content with that now. We've got the monkey off our back. We've broken the drought. So now let's just relax again and be another one of these teams who are just happy making the top 8 and not going anywhere once they get there.
I think the whole thing around Shane Flanagan's the only coach that's been able to overcome that culture, and him leaving, they just reverted, getting fired, suspended by the NRL. They reverted it back. But yeah, they need a cultural shift as a club. And yeah, if I was Nico Hines, I would honestly be, I know these players get really deep into their love for their club and all that kind of stuff, but if I was Nico Hines, I would seriously be considering this, looking at it and going, well, that's how we are as a club, and that's how I am as a player. If I went somewhere else, could I overcome the deeply embedded club culture of only being able to beat bottom 8 sides and not being able to handle the pressure of big pressure moments? Because you imagine he'd go to even somewhere like Manly or something. I don't know. There's not even a...
Yeah, well, he was at the Melbourne Storm before he was at the Sharks, so... And that's an example of a club who do perform well in big games.
Obviously, if he went to Melbourne or, a good place for him to go might be the Dolphins or something. But I would seriously be considering that. They have a whole thing about loyalty in league and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, if you're not going well as an athlete, you have to look and say, what is best for me? And I think, honestly, for Nico Hines, it's to find a club where he can change his own culture of folding.
Yeah, we talked about it before. Was he an Origin selection who was going to give New South Wales their best chance of winning the game, or was he an Origin selection who was picked because of where he sits on the Dallin leaderboard? And
Sharks were first. Nico Hines was first. Best halfback in the league, right? No. I mean,
so it was a team of the week selection, not a selection of, this guy will give us our best possible chance of winning.
They're all saying, he's stamped now, never going to be playing Origin again and blah, blah, blah. But they said that about people like Mitchell Pearce and things like that. No one is never going to be playing Origin again, really. But Nico Hines should never play Origin again as long as he continues with this kind of... the inability to handle any type of pressure, individually or as a club. Individually, he can't do it, and he can't. That means he can't take his club over it as well. So he definitely wouldn't be able to take the state over, country over, any rep team over. So I think the best thing for him is to leave.
Yeah, it may well be. It may well be something he has to look at.
So that's rugby league for the week. The T20 World Cup that no one cares about is going on. It's unwatchable basically because only on Amazon Prime and there are no replays. The only way to watch replays is to find pirated replays, which I strongly don't encourage, but you got to do what you got to do.
It's a bit of a problem when your care factor as it is not high for the game, and then you can only get it on Amazon. So it does make it hard when you can't watch the games. It makes it hard.
That's the people that I know that are fully into cricket keep messaging me and calling me like, how do I watch replays of the T20 Cricket World Cup? I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't have Amazon. And then they always say to me, like, you can't, they're out there. They may be there, but maybe they're hidden. But, on KO, if I miss a match, I can go and watch the replay.
As it is, it's hard to get interested in cricket during the football season. Unless it's an Ashes series, of course, at this time of the year. But outside of that, it's hard enough to get interested in cricket during the football season, let alone when they won't even show the tournament on TV and it's on a subscription service in Amazon. But anyway, Australia won that game against Scotland.
So they let England through.
But I'll tell you what, it was close. They only got there with 2 balls to spare by 5 wickets. It was close. Travis Head made 68. Marcus Stoinis made 59. Australia dropped 6 catches in that game. Quite extraordinary. That set the record for the most ever dropped catches in men's 2020 World Cup history.
There's no Women's World Cup going on right now, man. So if we're talking about the World Cup, it's men's, okay? So England's through, unfortunately, and it's because of Australia. I don't know what that Australian team were doing. Just come on, guys. You could have fully dropped England out, and it would have been the funniest thing ever.
If Scotland had won, it would have been Scotland go through instead of England.
I don't know what you were doing. But, Pat Cummins actually said there's no way we were going to drop the game on purpose. Yeah. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, you get yourself into some sort of what with that, with, all the drama around match fixing and betting. And
well done, Scotland, for almost making it. Now the group of 8 is on.
Yeah, so Australia and England have gone through to the Super 8 stage.
Super 8.
Out of Group B, so Scotland missing out. Australia and England both going through. England beating Namibia. So
I would hope so.
Yeah, you'd be wanting to beat Namibia, I would have thought.
Yeah. So that's T20 World Cup. In other news, Olympic trials is currently on for swimming.
Yeah, I think they might have just finished, but they were on up until Saturday night.
And Shayna Jack has qualified for the Olympics, which starts in
July,
late July. Well done, Shayna Jack.
Yeah, well done. It's a great turnaround for Shayna Jack. So she's booked a spot. So her first individual Olympic swim in the 100 metres freestyle. She also has qualified in the 50 metres freestyle as well. So well done there to Shayna Jack. She won that 50 metre freestyle final in Brisbane in 23.99 seconds. So well done to her. What a turnaround after that 24-month doping ban. So well done to Shayna Jack. What a redemption story that is.
She had a tainted supplement supposedly, but couldn't prove it. Unfortunately. That's one of the things about doping. Look at Yoel Romero. He had a tainted supplement, proved it was tainted, and then sued the company that tainted his supplement and won millions and millions and millions of dollars. Yeah. So if you can prove it, it does happen. But unfortunately, if you can't prove it, there's nothing much you can do. Yeah,
she's 25 now, Shayna Jack. So, well done to her on making it through there. In the 50 metres freestyle and the 100 metres freestyle individually. I think she's also in one of the relay teams as well. So well done, a great effort. Emma McKeon, unfortunately, she didn't qualify for the 100 metres, and so she will not defend her. So she actually won the gold medal in the 100 metres freestyle in the last Olympics. So. Unfortunately, she won't get a chance to defend that title in the 100 freestyle.
It is what it is. I'm only really into the wrestling and breakdancing this year. I'm in the breakdancing I want to watch because I'm curious. That's right.
Yeah,
there's breakdancing in the Paris Olympics.
Is anything else coming in other than breakdancing?
I think
sure.
it's maybe.
But I'm going to watch that out of curiosity.
There was one other thing that I can't remember. Yeah, breakdancing.
Unfortunately, Kate Campbell fell short in a bid to qualify for a 5th Olympics. She finished 7th in the 50-metre freestyle final, so that's unfortunate. She ends her career as one of the greatest Australian swimmers of all time. The 32-year-old's won 37 major international medals, 23 of them gold. So well done to her. A great career. But yeah, unfortunate for Emma McKeon, but well done to Shayna Jack.
Definitely.
And well done to Molly O'Callaghan as well.
On the Olympics, I don't know if you follow women's NBA. Does anyone? No. There's a player, Caitlin Clark, who is taking the women's NBA by storm. That's well hated by everyone in the women's NBA. Actually, she's the best player that they've ever seen, and she's the one that convinced the women's NBA to give charter flights instead of making all the women fly domestic and stuff. The crowd averages for when Caitlin Clark is playing more than double for every other thing. So she's like actually, there was one game that had higher ratings than the men's NBA for the night because Caitlin Clark was playing. She was left out of the women's Olympic team in the basketball, and they reckon it's because she's straight and white.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of controversy going on in women's basketball. I'm kind of curious to watch that as well to see if America die out because of the controversy off the court. Yeah. And
that'll be interesting. Yeah, so I might have mentioned, but Shayna Jack had already secured a place in the team as a 200-metre freestyle.
Yeah, that was on.
I think I mentioned that. Yeah. So well done to her.
And then the US Open is finished.
Yeah, so Bryson DeChambeau has won his 2nd US Open. Rory McIlroy came up short, missed a short par putt on the final hole. So Bryson DeChambeau's now won 2 majors. The other one was also the US Open title back in 2020. So he beat McIlroy by 1 shot. McIlroy blew a 2-shot lead with only a handful of holes to play. So that's sort of Greg Norman-esque. Greg Norman, of course, bombing out in the US Masters to Nick Faldo a number of years ago. But yeah, he missed a short par putt on the 18th that would have forced a playoff, and that extends a 10-year major drought that goes back to the 2014 British Open for Rory McIlroy.
So Bryson DeChambeau just made himself a good, pretty $4.3 million US. Oh, the prize money in golf.
Not a bad payday.
The prize money in golf. Yeah. That's it for sport around the world. Social media blower-uppers. We've just got Vic. Hi, Vic. He's got a couple of points, so we'll just address them one by one. Personally, I think Nico Hines is not a genuine halfback nor an origin player. However, New South Wales didn't have any other choice due to injuries. If he's picked for Game 2 of the series, which I think is already gone, will be over. Well, yeah, this obviously Vic posted this before the
team was named, so he hasn't been picked.
Lucky for all of us, Vic is out. On the subject of Galvin at the Tigers, which we discussed at length last episode, we're seeing firsthand why we don't need player managers in the NRL. Moses has history in destroying teams, and it's not hard to see why Uncle Mick at the Roosters, Ricky Stewart, and a couple of others, which I can't think of, will not deal with him. Lachlan has been given bad advice, and in my opinion, should be concentrating on his game and building his physique. Tigers have shown faith and belief in him, and he's going to be as good as some think. Well, why not be the players the Tigers can build a competitive team around, get them off the bottom of the table? As it's been mentioned many times that clubs can't get a good deal with a player because of managers like Moses, the game could do without these clowns. Well, Galvin, again, probably Vic made this comment before it was announced yesterday that Galvin has confirmed that he wants to stay at the Tigers.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what went on behind closed doors. I saw a lot of stuff about Shane Richardson being heavily critical of certain people. You know, like he's obviously very careful with his words, and certain people, for example, managers and things like that, giving bad advice to young players. One of the things we talked about last year in the off-season and during the season when we started was the Tigers, everything that happens there is leaked to the media. Everything. This whole story with Galvin started because Lachlan Galvin in the change rooms after a match said apparently to his players, the teammates, like, I can't wait till I leave here because the Tigers are going so terribly, and he was depressed and stuff, like down and everything like that, getting a lot of criticism, too much pressure on him. He's young, he's 18 years old. So that happened in the change room, and it got leaked to the media. I think every problem that is at the Tigers actually stems from these leaks. And until they plug them. So another one where I talk about culture with the Sharks. The Tigers have a culture of so much internal hatred amongst, the difference between Western Sydney and the Balmain Tigers, that no matter what, they're all trying to one-up each other. And they just are constantly leaking everything that happens to the media and creating massive issues off the field that filters through to the field.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it was Andrew Johns. We've talked about him a fair bit today. It was actually, I think, some comments from Andrew Johns. Like Andrew Johns saying, you should stay there. There's a legacy for you, and how good it would be if you can turn the club around. And he's actually revealed that Andrew Johns sort of swayed him in the right direction there, Lachlan Galvin. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was some of that, but maybe it was someone sort of getting in his ear and saying, "Look, mate, you got to earn your stripes first. You've only played a handful of first-grade games here. This club's given you an opportunity because other clubs wouldn't in the first instance. Yes, they are a struggling club, but you got to earn your stripes in this game. And only half a season into your first-grade career." I don't know whether you can be going about the whole kick stones at training, agitate, get a release for more money elsewhere.
He was never going to go anywhere, and that's
you can't be playing that game. I think maybe what Andrew Johns said had some bearing on it, but I think also someone's got in his ear and told him to pull his head in.
Yeah, well, that's actually like I think Craig Gower said to me the other day. It's your teammates' responsibility to do that as well, and that could be it. The players some of the players, senior players, put him aside and said, "Mate, what are you doing, you idiot? Don't listen to your agent, manager, whatever the crap it is." The managers are, unfortunately, they're in all different sports. Player management. Some are good, some are bad, and the bad ones make everything really bad. The NRL has tried in the past and continues to try to regulate them, basically. They have to be accredited. And, Coda Nasser famously wasn't allowed to represent Sonny Bill Williams because he refused to get the management or agent accreditation or whatever it is. There was a lot about managers and agents and stuff to do with, like, the Storm salary cap issue. Some people were suspended. Some of the managers or whatever were suspended. And yeah, but the problem really is that players don't know how to negotiate. The teams want the players and the sports athletes to concentrate on the sport. And if they spend all their time worrying about negotiations and stuff like that, it'll distract them from the sport. And so that's why some people will say that agents and managers are necessary evils. But
some agents can even control clubs. If they manage enough players at one club, they can have a real influence over the club. So clubs have got to be careful not to have too many players who are under the same manager at their club, or they can really get themselves into trouble.
And coaches are managed. So the coach can be when you throw in the coach in there, I don't know. There's no solution, but I agree with you, Vic. Like Moses has got form. He's always the one that's in the news about being a bit of a, being an issue.
This is the problem with player managers, is that they don't think necessarily about what's best for their player. They just think about what's best for their bank balance.
Yeah.
Because they work on a commission, whatever the commission is per contract. And I think managers only get their commission once their player signs a new contract. So it's always going to be in the manager's interest to have a player kick stones, agitate and get a release and go somewhere else, because if they're the manager who negotiates the new contract, well, they get the commission in the new contract. But that's where you got to be wary with player managers, is that it's not always in the best interest of the player to take the biggest money. It's not always in their best interest. Sometimes they're better off going to a better club, taking less money. It's better for their career, better for their state of mind, than going to a struggling club that has to pay overs just so their manager can get a bigger commission. The manager doesn't care if his player goes to a struggling club that pays overs. He just wants the bigger commission out of the bigger money contract.
Yeah, that's why I think people like Braithen Astor becoming a player manager.
Yeah, because I think he's very well off and he doesn't need the money.
Yeah, and he also knows what it's like to be a player that's kind of changed clubs. And he played for the Tigers,
the Roosters, the Bulldogs.
Yeah, changed clubs for various reasons and so on. So, yeah, good comment, Vic. As usual, we'll keep them coming. Just housekeeping before we finish up. Don't forget to sign up to SmartB, like and follow and tag us on social, and you can win 2 tickets to any regular season game for any sporting event in Australia to be redeemed within the next year, which is an awesome prize. And listen to the SmartB Sports Racing Update on Fridays with Bryce and Lewis, and follow at SmartB app on social media. Cool. Happy Monday.
Thanks, Sean. We'll see you next week.
Yes. See you, producer No One.